Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hello friends, once again we are together. I'm very happy to be with you. As you know, I'm Professor Dr. Jagdish Joshi, Professor and Director of UGC Human Resource Development Center of Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. When we conduct research, we know that it is a systematic process. And when something is systematic or scientific, naturally the steps are to be followed. So we will talk about steps in the research process. We together will try to understand various steps of this research process. We will try to make our research more qualitative and more impactful, more valid and more solid, more reliable and more valid, with the method of reliability and with the data of validity. So this is what we'll try to do. Let us try to understand the process of research and steps of research. Friends, this research process is something very simple, not at all complex. I would like to explain you it in very simple words so that you can understand exactly how this research process works or how research happens. The first thing happens in research is the define research problem. First step in the process of research is defining the research problem. You need to define your research problem, and when you are defining your research problem, the most important parts of it are you need to look at that exactly what I would like to work on. Say, for example, I would like to work on researches in English. I would like to work on something which happens in Gujarat. So see, I'm limiting myself. The moment you start looking at the choices, you start limiting yourself. When you think of research, the whole world, or even under the sky, over the sky, even under the sea, anything, you can research on anything in the world or outside the world. But now, the moment I decide I will work on English, I've limited myself from physics, chemistry, biology, and all other subjects. So I am going to work on English. So that is the first thing which I have chosen. Then I told you that I would like to work on the level of English. So when I would like to work on the level of English in Gujarat, so I limited myself again from the world, just I came to Gujarat. Not this, there are about 200 countries from which I came to India, and from India I came to Gujarat. So that is what I have limited. So when you define your research problem, you are limiting yourself. When you define it, try to be very particular. Just first go for a little broad topic, like you can decide that, okay, I would like to work on level of English in the students, among the student of Gujarat. Now this is something which I have thought. Now then what I should do? Then the second step comes is review of the concepts and the theories. I should review the concepts which are prevalent on level of English in Gujarat. That means level, not of level of English, just level of languages. How people work on level of languages. How people measure level of languages, how this level are, and what is the level? Can I call it level 1 to 3? Can I call it level 1 to 10? Can I call it level ABC? So there are various frameworks which are decided. Like IELTS has gone for some scores, some other people have gone for ABCD. So it depends which level you would like to go for, like A1, B1, like that. Also there are levels like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So like that also there are different levels of languages. So you should decide that exactly what do you mean by level. And that will not be decided by you. You will look at the theorist, you will look at the previous researches, you will look at the previous concepts, and based on that you will decide. The first step is define research problem. Second step is review concepts and theories. So you need to review concepts which are prevalent. You need to review theories. Third step is very important step here. That is review previous researches and findings. You need to look at what previous researchers have done related to a topic. What are their findings? You have to look at the research papers. You have to look at the research theses. You have to look at the research projects. You have to look at the researches published by different people on different formats. So this is called review. Then after that, you will formulate your hypothesis. So this is the third step. First step is define problem. Second is review of the literature. In review, we have two different things: review of the concept and theories and review of the researches. Then you are coming to formulation of the hypothesis. Not necessary that each research has a hypothesis. It may have hypothesis, it may not have hypothesis. It may have research questions instead. So some researches have hypothesis, some researches have research questions. You need to look at your research. You need to read theories, and that will tell you exactly whether you require a hypothesis or whether you require research questions. So now this is decided. So you will form either hypothesis or you will form questions. Whenever you form this, whether it is a research question or a hypothesis, it is very necessary that you should be non-biased. You should be objective. Your hypothesis should not just control you. Your research question should not control the researcher's mind. So they should be prepared objectively. Then the next step of research comes, and that is called design of research. That is called, you need to design for the research exactly how will you execute your research. This includes many things, but I just would like to tell you a few things which are very important. The first important thing is you have to decide your population. Your total, say for example, I would like to work on drama of Shakespeare. That means all the dramas of Shakespeare becomes my population. If I want to work on students of Gujarat, that means all the students studying from KG to PhD, all the students of Gujarat becomes my population. So I have to decide my population. After deciding population, I have to decide the sample. Now, sample is something very important. We will talk about details about sample later on when I'll talk about the sampling. But here, I would like to tell you, friends, that when you talk of sample, sample should be all a representative sample. That means when I say that I would like to talk about students of Gujarat, then it should represent each student of Gujarat, each class of student of Gujarat, each type of student. Say for example, it should represent rural student, it should represent urban student, it should represent students with a very high income, family income, student with very low family income, student with very high IQ, student with very low IQ, student with a very good result in previous years, student with very low result in previous years, student of a convent school, student of a government school, student of grantee aid school, student of air-conditioned school, student of non-air-conditioned school, gender of all students. So these all things I have to look at, that I should have representation of all this kind of students in my sample. And the size of sample. The size of sample should be such which should at least give me a very clear idea about the population. If, say for example, I'm taking a blood sample from somebody, even a small drop of blood has all the particles, all the characteristics of anywhere I spot my blood. But if I'm taking a sample of student, I cannot just say that I'll take a student of one, I'll take a sample of one student. I have to look at all characteristics, all diversifications, all parameters, all the variables, and my sample should represent all variables. That is how that sample becomes a good sample. My sample is decided, population is decided, then it's a time to decide research tool. Exactly why I would like to collect data. I should look at my problem. I should look at the problem, and then I should look at the hypothesis. When I have decided the hypothesis of research or research questions, along with that, I decide the objectives also. So I should look at the title, then the hypothesis or research questions and the objectives. Based on that, what really I am searching for. What I am searching for is I am either testing my hypothesis or I am searching for the answers to my research questions. Based on that, I should decide the research tool. Suppose I want to know the level of student of English, then what should be my research tool? I will test their language skills. Now there are 4 types of language skills. So like listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So I should develop such a tool which should really look at each aspect. That means it should look at LSRW, and it can test all LSRW. I should have the tool which should include testing of listening, which should include test of S means speaking, which should include test of R means reading, and which should test their skill of writing. So it should test everything. Such a tool should be prepared, which is a perfect research tool, and it should not be biased. After I have decided research tool, I'm ready for collecting data. So the next step, I would say the step number 5, again, try to remember the steps. Step number 1, define research problem. Step number 2, review the literature. Step number 3, formulate hypothesis or research questions. Step number 4, design of research. And now step number 5 is collection of data. You should collect data from your sample. Now there may be different ways to collect the data. You can collect data using electronics ways. You can use data depending on the tool you need to collect the data. So the next step is collection of data. We will talk about this in detail later on. And the next step after this comes, that is the 6th step, is analysis of the data. After you have collected data, that data is to be tabulated, that data is to be formatted, that data is to be presented in a way, and then the analysis of the data is to be done. Now, analysis of data in some way is called testing of hypothesis also. So analysis of data should answer your research questions and should test the hypothesis. It should tell you whether the hypothesis is accepted or not accepted. That happens based on analysis of data. And the last step after that, the seventh step, is interpretation of the data and writing of the report. So after we have followed all these 6 steps, we have defined our research problem, we have reviewed the literature, we have formulated hypothesis, or we have formulated research questions, we have designed the research, including sample and everything, research tool, and then we have collected data. We have collected data, that means execution of data collection, and we have analysis of the data, that means you have tested the hypothesis, we have replied to the research questions, then we interpret whole process. We record whole process, we interpret whole process, and then we write a report. Write a report means if you are working on research paper, you write a research paper. If you are working on PhD thesis, you write a PhD thesis. That is called writing a report. So best wishes to all of you for a qualitative research. Best wishes to all of you for writing a very good report for yourself, and best wishes for your life, best wishes for your career. Thank you very much.